I was accused of stealing $200,000. The company director I trusted set me up to cover his own schemes. While I fought to clear my name, he enjoyed life with stolen money. But he made one mistake: he left me alive. I never expected my life to unravel on an ordinary Tuesday morning. The autumn sun was streaming through the windows of Morton and Pierce Financial's headquarters in downtown Chicago, casting long shadows across my desk as I reviewed the quarterly reports. Everything seemed normal until two security officers appeared at my office door. The taller one, Davis, whom I'd often chatted with in the elevator, couldn't meet my eyes. "Alex, we need you to come with us." My stomach dropped, but I maintained my composure as I followed them to the executive conference room on the 42nd floor. The room where we usually celebrated major deals was now filled with a different kind of energy: tense, accusatory. Robert Kingston, our CFO, sat at the head of the table, his usually warm smile replaced by a grave expression. Next to him was Amanda Chen from Internal Audit and two men in suits I didn't recognize. "Please, take a seat, Alexander," Robert said, gesturing to the chair directly across from him. We'd had lunch together just last week, discussing my potential promotion. Now, his familiar face seemed like a mask, hiding something I couldn't quite grasp. "What's this about?" I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. Amanda slid a folder across the polished mahogany table. Inside were bank statements, transaction records, and what appeared to be screenshots from our financial system. My eyes fixed on a number: $200,000. "We've discovered irregular transactions," Robert explained, his voice carrying the practiced concern of a seasoned executive. "A series of transfers were made to an offshore account. The transactions were initiated from your terminal, using your credentials." The room started spinning. "That's impossible," I said, flipping through the documents. "I never authorized these transfers." "The evidence is quite conclusive," one of the suited men interrupted. "The transfers were made during your regular work hours, using your security tokens. The IP addresses match your workstation." My mind raced back to the past few weeks. The late nights I'd spent poring over financial reports, discovering discrepancies that didn't add up. The way Robert had brushed off my concerns about suspicious payments to shell companies I couldn't verify. His casual suggestion that I leave it alone and focus on my upcoming promotion instead. "This is a setup," I said, looking directly at Robert. For a fraction of a second, something flickered in his eyes. Was it guilt? Fear? But it vanished so quickly I might have imagined it. "Alexander," he sighed, spreading his hands in a gesture of helpless regret, "I've known you for 5 years. You've been like a protégé to me. I don't want to believe this either, but the evidence." That's when it hit me. The mentor-mentee lunches, the friendly pats on the back, the promises of advancement, it had all been calculated. He'd been grooming me, positioning me as the perfect fall guy for when his scheme inevitably came to light. "We've already contacted the authorities," Amanda said, her voice clinical. "Given the amount involved, this will be a criminal investigation. In the meantime, you're suspended without pay, effective immediately." Security escorted me out of the building, past colleagues who quickly averted their eyes. My key card was deactivated. My company phone was confiscated. 15 years of building a career in finance, gone in 15 minutes. But Robert had made a crucial mistake. In his careful planning, he'd overlooked something fundamental about my character: I wasn't just good with numbers, I was relentless when wronged. That night, instead of drowning my sorrows, I began to plan. Robert thought he had destroyed me, but he'd actually given me something invaluable: nothing left to lose. I spent the next few weeks building my case meticulously. I knew Robert's scheme had to leave traces, no fraud this large could be perfect. I reached out to former colleagues who owed me favors, cultivated relationships with janitors who worked late nights, and set up a sophisticated monitoring system for any mentions of Morton and Pierce in financial circles. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Janet, a junior IT administrator who'd always had a crush on Robert, was devastated to learn he'd been manipulating her too. She provided me access to archived system logs that Robert thought had been purged. Working from a small apartment I'd rented with my rapidly dwindling savings, I pieced together the truth. Robert hadn't just stolen $200,000, that was merely the tip of the iceberg. Over 3 years, he'd embezzled nearly $4 million through a complex web of fake vendors and inflated contracts. The transaction he'd pinned on me was just his latest move, designed to discredit anyone who got too close to the truth. But Robert's confidence in his own scheme made him sloppy. He'd gotten used to living large, expensive restaurants, luxury cars, a beach house in the Hamptons. While I lost everything, he flaunted his stolen wealth, certain that no one would connect the dots. I documented everything, the shell companies leading back to his brother-in-law, the convenient consulting fees paid to accounts in the Cayman Islands, the falsified board approvals. But I didn't take my evidence to the authorities, not yet. Robert had friends in the local FBI office, and I couldn't risk him being tipped off. Instead, I orchestrated a multi-pronged attack. First, I anonymously fed information to a hungry financial blogger about irregular patterns in Morton and Pierce's vendor payments. Then, I used Janet's access to slowly, carefully restore crucial files Robert thought he'd deleted, making it appear as if his digital shredding had malfunctioned. I created a secure Dropbox and sent key documents to 3 different financial newspapers, timing the releases to coincide with the company's biggest annual client meeting. But my masterpiece was something more personal. I started dating Robert's executive assistant's roommate, using the connection to gain insights into his movements and plans. Robert's first inkling that something was wrong came during a board meeting. A senior director casually mentioned the blog post about vendor irregularities. Robert maintained his composure, but I knew, through my network of sources, that he'd immediately called his brother-in-law afterward. The next day, he pushed through a company-wide system upgrade, a transparent attempt to purge any remaining evidence. That's when I sprung my trap. The attempted purge triggered a hidden protocol Janet had installed, automatically backing up everything to a secure server and alerting both the SEC and the forensic accounting team. The dominoes began to fall exactly as I'd planned. The SEC launched an investigation. The restored files provided a clear paper trail. The newspaper stories created a public relations nightmare. Morton and Pierce's stock plummeted, and major clients started asking uncomfortable questions. Robert, predictably, booked a flight to a non-extradition country. But the FBI, acting on an anonymous tip, and armed with evidence of his travel plans, courtesy of his assistant's roommate, was waiting at the airport. The look on his face when they led him away in handcuffs was almost worth everything I'd lost. Almost. The truth came out in a cascade of revelations. My name was cleared, and Morton and Pierce offered me my job back with a substantial settlement. I declined. Instead, I accepted a position at a smaller firm, one that specialized in detecting financial fraud. Robert got 15 years in federal prison. His assets were seized, his reputation destroyed. He tried to contact me once, through his lawyer, offering to explain everything. I didn't respond. Some explanations come too late. Sometimes, late at night, I wonder if my revenge was worth the cost, not in money or time, but in the part of myself I had to harden to see it through. Then I remember the faces of the younger employees whose careers and savings Robert had been prepared to sacrifice, and I know I'd do it all again. The last time I saw Robert was at his sentencing. He looked aged, defeated, nothing like the confident mentor who'd once promised to show me the ropes. As they led him away, he turned to me. "You destroyed everything I built," he said, his voice hollow. I smiled, the same warm, trustworthy smile he'd taught me to use in client meetings. "No, Robert. You built your empire on quicksand. I just waited for it to sink. Now, years later, I've found a strange peace. My new office has a view of the Chicago skyline, including the Morton and Pierce building where it all happened. Sometimes I watch the people rushing in and out, all of them believing they know who their friends are. I keep Robert's old business card in my desk drawer. Not as a trophy, but as a reminder, trust should be earned slowly and tested often. And if someone smiles too brightly, look carefully at what that smile might be hiding. They say living well is the best revenge. They're wrong. The best revenge is making sure your enemies never see you coming, and when they finally do, it's far too late to run. But the story didn't end there. 6 months after Robert's sentencing, I received an unexpected visit from Lisa Kingston, his wife. She divorced him shortly after his arrest, but there was something in her eyes that told me she wasn't there for closure. "There's more," she said, sliding a USB drive across my desk. Robert wasn't working alone. I studied her face, remembering how she'd stood by him during the trial, claiming his innocence. "Why tell me this now?" "Because they're still out there," she replied, her manicured fingers trembling slightly. "And they're not happy about what happened to Robert." The drive contained emails, meeting recordings, and photographs, evidence of a larger conspiracy involving board members from 3 other financial institutions. Robert hadn't just been stealing, he'd been part of a sophisticated network of financial criminals, each protecting the other through a maze of shared secrets and mutually assured destruction. I locked the drive in my safe but didn't act immediately. Experience had taught me patience. Instead, I watched and waited, noting which board members suddenly started liquidating assets, which ones began canceling public appearances. Fear has a smell, and they were reeking of it. Pieces of a new puzzle began falling into place. The irregular payments I discovered weren't just going to Robert's shell companies, they were flowing through a complex network of offshore accounts, touching dozens of seemingly unrelated corporations. This wasn't just theft, it was systematic corruption on a scale that made Robert's crimes look amateur. I found myself standing at another crossroads. I could hand everything to the authorities, wash my hands of it, and move on with my life. The safer choice. The saner choice. But I remembered Robert's words at his sentencing, "You think this changes anything? The system protects its own." He was wrong about many things, but maybe he was right about that. The system does protect its own, unless someone changes the rules of the game. So I began another chess match, this time against players who made Robert look like a pawn. I knew they'd be watching me, expecting retaliation. That's why my next moves had to be invisible, patient, devastating. I started teaching night classes in corporate finance at the local community college. A perfect cover for what was really happening in those evening hours. Among my students were computer experts, former law enforcement officers, and even a few disillusioned finance industry veterans, all carefully selected, all nursing their own grudges against the system. Together, we're building something. A network of whistleblowers and watchdogs, a hidden army of the wronged and the righteous. Robert's conspirators don't know it yet, but their time is coming. Not with a bang or a scandal, but with the slow, inexorable grind of justice. They say revenge is a dish best served cold. But sometimes, it's best served systematically, professionally, and with enough backup to make sure it sticks. I keep 2 things in my desk drawer now, Robert's business card, and a list of names. The card reminds me of the past. The list? That's the future. And this time, I'm not just taking down one corrupt executive. I'm dismantling an empire. The game is different, but the rules remain the same: trust no one completely, document everything meticulously, and never, ever show your hand until it's time to collect the pot. Robert was just the beginning. His partners are out there, still pulling strings, still ruining lives. But they made the same mistake he did. They left behind someone with nothing left to lose and everything to prove. Sometimes at night, I stand at my window, looking out at the glittering Chicago skyline. Behind those bright lights, behind the glass and steel facades of power, the corrupt still plot and scheme. They think they're untouchable, protected by their wealth and connections. But I know better now. No one is untouchable. It's just a matter of finding the right pressure points, the right moments, the right allies. And patience. Always patience. After all, the best predators don't chase their prey. They wait for the perfect moment to strike. And I've gotten very, very good at waiting. What Robert never understood, what his co-conspirators still don't grasp, is that revenge isn't about anger. It's about strategy. Every morning, I review the financial news with fresh eyes, tracking stock movements, corporate restructurings, unexpected resignations. Patterns emerge if you know where to look. 3 months ago, Benjamin Wallace, CEO of First Metro Capital and one of the names on my list, suddenly stepped down citing personal reasons. The press release mentioned spending time with family, but I knew the truth. The evidence I'd carefully leaked to his board, through untraceable channels, had given them an ultimatum: remove him quietly or face a public scandal that would sink the company's stock. Wallace's departure sent ripples through the network. Emergency board meetings were called at 3 different financial institutions. Private jets made unscheduled trips to the Cayman Islands. Money started moving in strange patterns, like frightened fish before a storm. I track it all, building my case piece by piece. My night class students have become more than just allies, they're a sophisticated intelligence network. Sarah, a former cybersecurity expert, monitors digital footprints. Marcus, who spent 20 years as a forensic accountant, spots financial anomalies that others miss. Even the janitors and security guards who attend my class provide invaluable intelligence about after-hours meetings and shredded documents. But this isn't just about gathering evidence anymore. It's about understanding power, how it flows, how it corrupts, and most importantly, how it can be redirected. Each player we remove weakens the entire structure. Every exposed scheme makes the others more paranoid, more prone to mistakes. Last week, I had dinner with Janet, my old IT ally from Morton and Pierce. She's risen through the ranks, now heading cybersecurity for a major bank. Over perfectly cooked steaks, we discussed the latest market trends, carefully avoiding any mention of our shared past. But as she left, she slipped me a note: they're planning something big. Be careful. I've learned to read between the lines. The network is planning a major move, probably to protect themselves from the increasing scrutiny. They'll try to bury their tracks under a mountain of legitimate transactions, maybe engineer a minor crisis to distract regulators. But they don't know what I know, that every defensive move they make only reveals more of their strategy. That each attempt to hide their connections only illuminates the very paths we need to follow. I've started compiling a special dossier, something I call the Glasshouse Protocol. It contains everything, every transaction, every connection, every secret meeting and hidden account. When the time comes, it won't just expose individuals, it will reveal the entire corrupt ecosystem they've built. The dossier is my insurance policy, distributed across secure servers worldwide. If anything happens to me, if I miss a weekly check-in, the information automatically goes to journalists, regulators, and law enforcement agencies globally. The truth would explode across the financial world like a digital tsunami. Robert's partners know I'm still out there, still watching. What they don't know is that they're no longer the hunters, they're the hunted. Every move they make, every plan they hatch, brings them one step closer to their own downfall. Sometimes I wonder what Robert would think if he could see me now. Would he recognize the quiet, trusting protégé he tried to destroy? Or would he finally understand that he didn't just fail to kill my career, he sparked something far more dangerous, a mission? The sun is setting over Chicago now, casting long shadows across my office. In buildings across the city, lights are going out as honest workers head home to their families. But in corner offices and private clubs, the corrupt are still at work, still plotting, still believing in their own invincibility. Let them plot. Let them scheme. Let them think they're safe behind their walls of money and influence. Because in the end, they'll learn what Robert learned, that true power isn't in wealth or connections. It's in patience, preparation, and the absolute certainty that justice, while slow, is inevitable. The best predators don't just wait for the perfect moment to strike. They create that moment, shape it, ensure that when it comes, there's no escape. And I'm done waiting. The pieces are in place. The evidence is secured. The network has grown complacent, believing the threat has passed. Tomorrow, the first domino falls. By the time they realize what's happening, it will be far too late. After all, they made the same mistake Robert did. They assumed that destroying someone's life would break them. They never considered that it might forge them into something far more dangerous, someone with nothing left to lose and a lifetime to plan their downfall. The sun has set completely now. In the darkness, I can see my reflection in the window, superimposed over the city lights. I don't see the eager young financial analyst Robert tried to destroy. I see something else, a hunter, patient and prepared, ready to strike. The game is about to change. And this time, no one gets to walk away. I check my watch, 11:47 p.m. In 13 minutes, the automated systems we've put in place will begin their work. By morning, digital tendrils will have spread through the financial networks, exposing decades of corruption. Every account, every transaction, every secret deal will be laid bare. The evidence isn't just going to regulators this time. We've prepared detailed dossiers for major news outlets, social media platforms, and financial watchdog groups. The story will break simultaneously across multiple channels, making it impossible to suppress or control. My phone buzzes, a message from Sarah, security protocols in place. No traces. Then another from Marcus, money trails confirmed. All accounts flagged. One by one, my team checks in, each playing their part in this carefully orchestrated endgame. I think about Robert in his prison cell, probably sleeping soundly, unaware that his former empire is about to crumble completely. His partners, enjoying their last night of freedom and privilege, don't realize that their world will be fundamentally different by breakfast. The plan isn't just about exposure, it's about systemic change. We've worked with whistleblowers inside regulatory agencies, coordinated with reform-minded legislators, and built a coalition of ethical finance professionals ready to step into the void our actions will create. 11:55 p.m. In the reflection of my office window, I see a younger version of myself, naive, trusting, believing in the system. That version died the day Robert betrayed me. What rose from those ashes was something else entirely. A catalyst for change, a force for justice. My computer chimes softly. Final confirmations coming in. Everything is in place. The countdown begins. I pour myself a small glass of whiskey, the same brand Robert used to drink during our mentor-mentee meetings. The irony isn't lost on me. Those sessions were supposed to teach me about power in the financial world. In the end, they did, just not in the way he intended. 11:59 p.m. 1 minute left. My phone buzzes again. A text from Lisa Kingston, Robert's ex-wife. Are you sure about this? I don't respond. We both know it's too late for doubts. The machine is in motion. The truth, so long buried under layers of lies and money, is about to break free. Midnight. Somewhere in the digital ether, switches flip. Programs execute. The first emails begin their journey to newsrooms and regulatory offices. By the time the sun rises, the financial world will be in chaos, a controlled burn to clear out the rot and make way for something new. I raise my glass to the Chicago skyline, to the ghosts of my past, to the future we're about to forge. Here's to you, Robert, I whisper. Thanks for the education. The first alerts start appearing on my phone. It's begun. And somewhere in the darkness, a new day dawns.